and solutions.
RadioWeek.
RadioWeek. 5 days of awards.
5 days of awards.
Inspirations and solutions.
Inspirations and solutions.
RadioWeek.
Hello.
Hello. Here we are. We're ready for the fireside chat. This is our first fireside chat. Actually, it's the second. Philip did one yesterday. Fiorenza Mella is here with Sarah Geeroms. Sarah is the head of Future Media Hubs at VRT. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Nice to meet you. Fiorenza, we can't hear you.
Fiorenza, sorry. You have to unmute your mic. Yeah,
Got
no
you
problem.
now.
You're there now. Fiorenza?
Yes.
You're live?
I'm not sure if I'm live. I am? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm alive and live. That's great. Fantastic. So I'm going to, Marguerite just introduced Sarah Geeroms, working on innovative strategic partnerships, and she's head of Future Media Hubs at VRT. So we are going to talk about collaborative innovation, a theme that we already heard earlier on from Arcidiacono, and we are going to move forward. Hi, Sarah.
Hello there.
Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me, Sarah?
Yes, hello.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm not sure how it went live. Did the introduction to Sarah Geeroms pass? Yeah, okay. So here we are. So Sarah, just starting quickly with the first question. How would you define collaborative innovation, and why has it gained so much traction over the past years?
Yeah, for me, collaborative innovation is when different media organizations or other organizations, in this case, are brought together to discuss around a certain innovative topic and explore the opportunities to collaborate together in order to strengthen their own organizations and or a sector as a whole. And I think the reason why it gained so much traction by now is that because there are a lot of small organizations who are just too little to survive on their own. So if they exchange learnings and if they see where they can build or create together with other organizations, they really find an asset there.
Yeah, absolutely. And how does collaborative innovation apply to public media at the level of VRT and at the international level of EBU?
Yeah, so obviously, as I work in media, that's why I already referred to the media organizations. I work on partnerships for VRT, exactly because we highly value this collaborative innovation. And I do this both individually and in groups. And the Future Media Hubs are exactly that. This is a network of international public and commercial media organizations that exchange and collaborate around innovative topics in order to strengthen each other. And we really discuss different topics such as startup and entrepreneurship, the future of broadcasting, young digital talent, gaming, sports, and so on. And amongst our members, we have, for example, Radio France, but also, because we're not only radio focused, but also BBC, we have Media City Bergen, Red Bull Media House, so a lot of different organizations within Europe. And then, when you asked regarding to EBU, we have, for example, Ezra Eman, who is head of digital and platforms, who is part of our advisory board. So there's definitely a link, and we also have a good connection with the TNI part. So,
Right. And probably you've already given this a little bit, but any practical examples of this kind of collaborative innovation, and how would you highlight the benefits added by initiatives such as Sandbox? I know what Sandbox is, but maybe you want to give a brief introduction about that, because I find it a very interesting initiative. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so Sandbox is one of the mechanisms, innovation mechanism that we promote. It was based on the VRT Sandbox model, which is our local accelerator at VRT that matches startups with our internal business units for short periods of time, and really in order to have them test, further develop, and validate their new technology. So I've not been working on the projects myself, but a few examples that I know have taken place over the last years are, for example, Onhertz, who built a mobile radio studio that you can run from an iPad. And I think a couple of years ago, we had a live hot air balloon morning show, which was pretty cool. And so after that project, we introduced this startup within our international network, and they gained much more traction like that and got some new collaborations out of it. Another example is Podio, who together with VRT Radio worked on a podcast on the go. So the app really presented based on people's interests and travel time, some platform episodes. So that's pretty cool as well. And then the last example is VoiceUp, some guys who've also been working together with internationally, who really help, for example, radio hosts to measure the impact of their radio show based on data. Let's say if the radio host said, hey, turn up your volume, then they could immediately see after the show how many people reacted on that. So these are just a few examples. We have obviously many more of our members working in radio, and you can find it on the website later on. Yeah,
no, exactly. I find it very interesting being a hub, actually supporting all kinds of startups, from coming from different countries. Really, I love it. Absolutely. So referring to the principle of united in technology, competing through technology, and competing through content in a way. So it's like, going back to a quote we heard earlier on, given by EBU Arcidiacono. There is no competition. It's just different colors, when you are talking about working together and collaborating. So do you think that sharing the knowledge at a collaboration level, even if competing at a business level, can be applied also to the private media sector, and at some level involve its actors?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what my job is about at VRT. I think if we want to respond to the international challenges that are in front of us, then we need to join forces, and not only with the public service media, but also with our commercial partners. Especially because, just a good cooperation between both can really mean a win-win situation for the European media landscape. And of course, like you mentioned, we have different roles, and we will compete on content, but there are many other opportunities that we can collaborate on. Think of the fight against fake news, the safe use of data, or build a common framework and infrastructure to share some and build some new services and so on. So that's what we try to do, either individually with partners and also within our future media hubs. Just looking for that bridge on which we can collaborate, even though in certain other areas we stay competitors.
Yeah, no, that's very good, because then it's really the principle of sharing knowledge. Even when we are all involved with certain problematics which go beyond the individual the individual business, the individual interest. Yeah, that's very good. All right. Yeah. Well, Sarah, I thank you so much for being here and for providing, your input, and which is going to be very interesting and useful to many companies, I guess. So thank you a lot.
And, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Fiorenza.
Yeah, thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, we're now going to the RedTech Awards, but maybe before we welcome the next session, and we just add them, all the guys to the next. No, not Robin. Robin is not coming to the stream.
Hey Pietro, hey Jay, hey Steve.
Hello to everyone. Sorry for the small delay.
We need to add Gary. Gary.
Gary. Oh, sorry, Gary. You're here.
I'm here.
Gary's here as well.
Hey, there you are.
Margaret, we launched the RedTech Awards. It's just 1 minute, and then we start with a remote production session. Let's go.
Congratulations to Aita for the Scoop team features and updates. It receives the RedTech Tribe Choice Award for reliability. And it has a few major updates, which are dual mobile connectivity, dual streaming, and bonding functionalities. Congratulations, Jan and company.
Congratulations, Jan and company. Yay!
All right, now we're going to move on to the next session. Welcome Gary Klein. He was in our last session as well. He's the president of Klein Consulting, in the US. We have with us Pietro Casati, who is CEO of DAX Systems in Switzerland. Jay Martin, VP Sales of Dielectric in the US as well. And Steve Schultes, who is the CTO of NP New York Public Radio in New York. Welcome all.
Thank you. Hi. Good afternoon to everybody.
Hello, Gary.
Okay. Hey, so we're going to have a great session today, talking about something that's always been important to broadcasters, radio, and I'll even throw television in there, in terms of remote broadcasting, remote capability, remote monitoring, remote everything, right? And over the last, I would say, 20 years, 15 years, but even more so over the last 6 or 7 years, technology has really improved such that, we have folks walking around the streets or at lunch or dinner out and about, getting on their iPhone or their Android and controlling their automation, operating remote broadcasts, turning things on and off, checking their transmitter readings, and just a whole bunch of things. But more than ever now, right, with COVID and what happened in January or for some in February, this almost overnight rush to abandon radio stations and studios, and for sales folks and air talent and engineers to all be sent home and to only come into the building if it was an emergency, required an enormous amount of effort and equipment to be purchased by many broadcasters so that they could do an even better job of getting into their stations remotely. And now we weren't talking just about remote broadcasts, but I think we were talking about traffic and billing, their customer relationship management system, their CRM system, and other what we call back office functions so that they could continue to operate the business. So in our session today, we've got a great team. I think I know almost everybody here. Steve in New York, you've done a whole bunch of broadcast remote design work, so much more in the last several months at New York Public Radio, which the people that are listening and watching today, New York Public Radio is much more than what it probably sounds like. I think of New York Public Radio as almost a a Microsoft of radio broadcasting because of all the things that you do in New York and all of the content you distribute and all of the highly ranked podcasts that you produce out of there. So I have to imagine, given the scale and size of your ship, the push to go remote in so many different ways with not a lot of time to do it had to be both challenging and interesting. And I know you've got some things to talk about and some screenshots. So I'm going to start with you first and let you spend a couple of minutes on that. I mean, you were out there in the trenches doing it.
Hey, thanks, Gary. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, hasn't it, for us and for everyone. And also, hey, thanks for RedTech for asking me to join this roundtable. I think it's going to be a great discussion. So yeah, I'm going to speak about what New York Public Radio has had to do in this period of the pandemic, really to allow us to continue to do live and recorded remote broadcasting. And for this, I'm going to spell out 3 remote use cases that we had to meet. So first, though, as Gary mentioned, though, let me clarify how I'm using the term remote in this talk, because although we do a lot of remotes around New York City and the typical venues, Carnegie, at opera and things like that, and it's mostly for music and arts, we don't do sports at New York Public Radio. But the more than obvious point is that since the pandemic began and continuing really into the foreseeable future, this remote activity has sadly just ceased to be. There's simply no live remote productions occurring in these halls. So what is occurring now is the fact that all of our talent are remote in the sense that they are working from home, in this case, broadcasting from home. So we have a small skeleton crew of essential workers in our broadcast studios, but as you can imagine, and you're probably doing the same things, these are mostly engineers who need to be on site to operate the routing and audio consoles and feeds in and out of the facility. So for the health and well-being of both these engineers and the talent, our mandate from the beginning has been to minimize exposure to coworkers in the studio. So talent and frankly, the rest of the 400 employees in our company are really mandated to work from home. So that was our first use case for remote production in this world, this new world, live talent broadcasting from home. And frankly, we still have a growing need for this. We're a nonprofit, so we fundraise 3 times a year on the air. So this takes our pool of talent and it expands it to 3 times that, these times when we have to go on the air and ask for money. So we had to look for a solution that really did not come with a high cost of individual hardware audio codecs, right? That's typically the go-to solution. Now, the next use case was supporting this live talent with our production staff, who is also working from home. We rely heavily on our production staff for live programming to serve various functions that you all know: show direction, production and playback of interstitial audio, and live call screening. All these tasks require communication between the members of the production team. Now, back before the pandemic, everyone was in the control room, and these people just simply used to talk to one another, like we're doing now. But now, with everyone at home, we had to rely on the use of our in-house intercom system and the remote control of that, as well as low latency audio connectivity to and from the system. So that was use case 2, remote intercom and audio connectivity. Now, lastly, our third use case involved remote recording production, recordings for pre-produced podcast shows and broadcast interviews. As Gary mentioned, we're kind of have many hats at New York Public Radio, and we're actually a fairly large podcaster with about 30 to 40 shows in production every month, and we get about 40 to 50 million downloads per month. Now, up until recently, to get a recording of guest talent for interviews, we were dependent on the various low latency audio codecs that you can run on your laptops, which can really deliver great audio. But we often had the issue with home internet and Wi-Fi issues and problems like with the guest's personal technology that altogether create, at best, really delays in setup, and at worst, force us to switch to lower bit rates that compromise the audio quality. Now, this last use case was especially driven, I got to say, by this remote project we did pretty early on in the pandemic, about last May and June. There's an institution in New York called Public Theater, that has been putting on free Shakespeare plays in Central Park in the summer times since the 50s. And last year was the very first year that it looked like they could not offer a production to the public. So we approached them to produce the play for radio. Remember radio plays, right? So it's a free public medium, and they jumped at the chance. Well, honestly, we kind of put the cart before the horse because we didn't at the time have a solution for high-quality talent audio recording in the home and for live collaboration, especially for about 20-plus actors and a director and production staff. We did Richard II for this. But the show had to go on, and we resorted to assembling and shipping out no less than 20 remote kits of various portable digital audio recorders and mics and headphones. We sent these to the homes of the actors and the directors, and we grabbed them from everywhere we could find. Added to that were rehearsals over Zoom, the collaboration software. And eventually, the actual performance occurred using Zoom for timing and direction, and their audio being recorded locally on these portables. Then everything was shipped back to a handful of engineers for cleanup, and then to the sound designer for mixing, editing, and mastering. The final product was a 4-part production, broadcast over 4 nights, and of course, a 4-part podcast in the end. Now, this worked out, but of course, just by listening to this, the effort and labor was incredible. And of course, we could never expect to sustain that kind of workflow for more productions every month. We knew we needed a software solution. So that was the third use case. So with these use cases we decided on a single technology platform that could support the various software solutions needed here. A single platform was a priority so that we could take advantage of the usual things you find in a unified platform. Quantity discounts when we're buying a whole bunch of things, efficiency of assembly line construction, and simple training and use. Now, I'm going to attempt to share my screen here.
Yeah, it should work. It should work. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I'm going to share. Let's see here. If I go to...
share screen.
Yeah, application. Okay. Tell me if you can see this photo.
Oh yeah.
You see this? Okay. So,
yes.
All right, great. So that's. I'm going to talk about this tablet, the border-based case, the Pelican case, the Shure microphone and things. But I also I'm going to zoom in a little bit just for one more slide. Not slide heavy. So let's see. Go back to screen share. So one more. Bear with me a minute. Okay. And I think you can see this okay?
Yep.
So, basically this is all about ease of operating for these. This is for guest talent that people are, it could be our own talent or it could be guests who have never touched a microphone before. So this is just, so our mandate was just simplest connection possible. There's power, for this tablet, headphone connection, bidirectional audio between the mic and the tablet. We took advantage of this new Shure MV7 mic, which is its own audio interface for this, just to kind of simplify everything. So our solution, so we assembled identical remote kits. So far we're up to 20, and it's growing. We'll probably double that. So it's the mic and the headphones you saw, and the platform, that the tablet there is an LTE tablet, the Microsoft Surface Pro. And this is running a full Microsoft OS. We needed that so we could have the full mobile device management of them through Azure Active Directory, and of course our enterprise patch management system for security. It's the same system we use for all the laptops that we have out in the field. However, for simplicity, these tablets operate in kiosk mode, and they present only 3 login options to each user upon power up. They get the user access to one of the 3 use cases that we're talking about. And the LTE connectivity connects immediately to the internet, but we also build in an option to switch to the home Wi-Fi should the location have poor cell coverage. So briefly, here's the logins. There's a login for live broadcast for talent and remote guests broadcasting from home. This option boots up a software codec for high quality, low latency, bidirectional audio. We're using a codec that we helped develop to include things for radio like talkback and muting. It came from a company called ATC Labs here in the States, Audio Technologies and Codecs. Now, back in the studio, the receiving codecs also live in software, but they're in our enterprise VMs, and they interface digitally with our plant-wide routing and mixing system. The second login is for live intercom, that live intercom solution we needed. This is for the live show producers and call screeners at the home. We may have like 8 producers in the field for each show, so this has a big need. This option also boots up the same software codec, but it also boots up a remote software interface that we developed to control our plant intercom system for routing, latch listening, and press to talk. And lastly, this the podcast and recording login. This boots a cloud software interface that looks a bit like any other meeting app like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Provides the usual low latency proxy audio and video path like we're using today, and allows for a conversation between the host and the guest. But while the session is going on, the linear wave files of each of the participants are being recorded in the app and transported during the recording to a cloud repository where the show's sound designer or producer can access them after the session. And they're just accessed as typical individual linear tracks, and we download them into their editor. We use Pro Tools for mixing and editing. Now that transport concludes generally within 30 seconds or so from the end of the recording. So we're using an off-the-shelf solution for this called Riverside FM. There are other solutions out there too. And then finally, as you saw, the Pelican case that holds the gear is meant to tip sideways in front of the talent mics to serve as a little acoustic dampening for their audio, because these are going to all sorts of places we can't control, and it seems to help a little bit.
Steve,
back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Steve. That was great, and I think we understand that various stations around the world have their interesting and unique ways of doing remotes, and it gives us as engineers and technicians some creativity to pull together, as you did, all of these different pieces. 5G, various different companies that provide remote connectivity, that can provide software, folks like Riverside FM in the cloud, I'm aware of who they are, even down to your Pelican case to keep it all safe, because it's a jungle out there when things get shipped around and people put things in their car and all of that great stuff. And you want the equipment to come back, hopefully as it left. But that's a wish, right? Doesn't always happen that way. But it's really interesting to see how you approached it. And no matter how anybody does approach it, there are these commonalities, these common things between the different geographies and between station to station, and that is we need to be able to get on the air quickly. We need to be able to remote control various things back at the station, including our playout system. We need reliable connectivity, and we need it to be something that, and I know you worked hard on this, that somebody at the remote end, the air talent, for example, or somebody in the news department can understand and not run into a lot of difficulty or confusion when they're in the field. So really appreciate that. And I'm going to use that as a segue on the topic of remote controlling items and monitoring things back at the radio station. Something that's overlooked a bit and shouldn't be overlooked is our equipment at the studio and our transmission site and our RF plant, because when you don't get to visit it very often, things can go wrong and they can be very costly. Jay Martin is here. Jay is with Dielectric, world famous antenna manufacturing company. Jay and I have known each other many years. Jay, great to have you here. Can you talk a little bit about the things that you've been working on and the technologies that you're employing to help people keep their RF plant safe and I guess trouble-free, and how you're doing that now to help them do this from almost anywhere?
Okay. Thank you very much, Gary. To say the least, it's been unprecedented times in broadcasting. We've been wrapping up a 36-month repack. That was ending in July of last year, July 3rd, 2020. The repack ended. At that point, about 987 stations repacked. There were about 1,000 that did not repack. And I'll talk a little bit about both of those scenarios. During this period, come February, March timeframe, the pandemic came in. It stopped us from doing site visits. site inspections, the actual climbs, the boots of the systems. And we had a number of systems going to the field at that point that needed to be certified before powering up. Those are the new systems. The older systems that are out there, the FCC put a freeze in place in 2013, at which case broadcasters stopped investing in their plan. They all hoped to be part of this auction for the repack, but 1,000 of those stations were not part of that. So you've got 1,000 stations with equipment that is anywhere in age from, say 10, 15 years to up to 50, 55 years. There's equipment out there from the late 50s and early 60s. The challenge with all of this is the fact that we have a new technology coming as well. We have ATSC 3.0 with a peak average power ratio of 6 to 7 dB. Normally, those older systems would operate indefinitely, especially the VHF ones, because there's low power in them. But the UHF, we've got 1 million watts of ERP, we've got transmission TPO levels of 10 to about 80 kilowatts average. Older equipment, the engineering infrastructure, engineering people are getting older as well. I remember when I started in the early 80s, I was young. I'm no longer young, but I'm the face of, or the average age of the broadcast RF engineer. We need to change this up. So since we have not been able to change this up dramatically, we're leveraging technology. The technology has advanced so much, as Steve and Gary say, over the past several years, that we're able to rely on that much more as a fundamental part of our business. So we saw the opportunity for getting into a business. We met with DAC Systems out of Switzerland in 2017 at NAB. They had a great idea on a legacy product to monitor the antenna and transmission line separately. We're working on them on a later technology for actually monitoring systems under full power. So that's where we came up with the RF Hawkeye. And Pietro will talk to the technology a bit more as well, but this allows a broadcaster to monitor their system under full power remotely in a time domain method. In the past, when you wanted to sweep a system, you would go out, power down, put a transition on, put a network analyzer on the system, and inject a signal and see the response to that. The time domain will tell you where a fault has taken place or where the discontinuities are. But by the time you hook everything up, the system is cooled down. So the RF Hawkeye actually allows you to keep everything running at full power. You put a line section in the transmitter building, inject a VHF signal into your UHF transmission line, and it will show every discontinuity. It will show every flange, every connector, every elbow. And this system actually allows the software to characterize the system over time. Your elbow complex is going to look different than a straight line section, and it will change with seasonality. So the RF Hawkeye will characterize your system over time and allow you as the chief engineer to define at what limit you want to be alarmed or at what limit do you want the system to take over and actually fold back your power. So it's a great technology that we developed in conjunction with DAC Systems, and I'll let Pietro talk a bit more about the technology, but that's what it's all about.
Thank you, Pietro. Hello.
Anytime. Thank you to everybody. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jay, for the nice introduction. Yes, the topics of this talk, let me say that the DAC system is covering the other side of from outside the studio building and the say transmitter building, because the as Jay, the RF components outside, that means that are very important for the transmission, and are the transmission line and the antenna are the most critical part. They are also essential in the signal, but they are also the most expensive, the most hard to cover, and for this reason we invented this new technology that it's really unique, allowing the broadcaster to prevent the failure, and now forced by this new timing that this coronavirus forced us, through the software offer the possibility to remote have all the information necessary to be able to prevent, save a lot of money, reduce the time on site just when is necessary. And with the electric, we have done a great partnership. They are making a very great job. Now we are also working in the European market, but because the antennas, they have a different layout, but we are seeing that there is a lot of interesting, because these topics of monitor the RF component, it's really important and makes sense.
That's really interesting stuff, Pietro. I have said probably for 10, maybe even 15 years, and I first said it at a dinner at the NAB in Las Vegas to the folks at Bird Electronics, and I don't think they ever listened to me, and I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, but I said we need better remote monitoring equipment to monitor the health of our antennas and our transmission lines, and to prevent expensive burnouts and other problems. Not to mention that even if you don't have an expensive problem, but you're, as you and I think Jay said earlier, you're not operating at full power, from a business point of view in our business, we call that distribution. If you don't have full power, you may not be reaching every listener. And if you're not reaching every listener, that's generally not a good thing, right? It could cause you problems in ratings and then problems in revenue. Pietro, though, I was going to ask you, where does the future take us? Are you working on, whatever you can talk about? You may not be able to talk about everything you're working on, but are you thinking about or working on other products to monitor yet other things? And if so, can you give us a preview? I mean, how do you see things moving as we continue to consolidate operations, we continue to potentially work from home, and we do this with even less people and people that are very busy. So we need to make things easier for them and to put the information they need at their fingertips. So based on the work that you do in your company, where are you thinking?
Thank you for asking this question, Gary. You have touched the right point, because providing data, it's one thing, but where we are working now, it's to a sort of machine learning that we call it analytics, that will centralize, first of all the different stations in one hub. We'll provide a report, we analyze the data, and we will offer to the broadcaster, small group, a big group, the possibility to make a prevention. This is the big word that I like to highlight for the future. We will offer the possibility to prevent action, maintenance, and so on, using all our data that we are offered, make analysis, and providing with the analytics all the information, and the possibility to move the business from just a pure offering of data to a service level with the analytics.
Okay, that's great. I hope I get to see you and everybody in person sometime. Maybe in October if things get better and we have we hope. Steve, I know you talked about the remote broadcasting equipment that you put together at New York Public Radio, but I also know you're a seasoned engineer and you wear a lot of hats. So let me ask you, in New York, and I think you have sites, maybe transmitter sites in New Jersey, correct me if I'm wrong. How are you monitoring those? And based on what you've heard today, is that something you would implement? What are your thoughts? You, as I like to say, you're in the trenches. You're a potential customer and an end user, as we say.
No, absolutely. I was going to comment, but I didn't want to interrupt. But yeah, we have 8 transmitter sites in the tri-state area, which in New York is New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Recently, and we, of course, we remote them both back. We still operate a master control. However, in that pandemic, we pulled back from 24/7 staffing. So now, if something goes bump in the night, we get alerts through our remote control system. It's still SNMP monitoring. We're hoping to use, actually, we're developing PRTG, which is a network monitoring tool. And we're basically using that to expand the remote control system. We have one system for all the sites. But I was also going to mention that there's also a need for, a lot of broadcasters, including us, we share towers now with cellular, the cellular industry. And of course, these guys always seem to need to climb the pole, and there's always maintenance to be done. So for RF safety, we're really dependent on the remote control system to accurately pull back the power. If we go to a calibrated half power or quarter power or something that we know will prevent, will allow the climbers to work safely, or we may just have to shut down. But we depend heavily on that. We just came through a period, it was right during Christmas into New Year's, about 10 climbing days at one of the sites. And we can't send a guy there every day. So we're dependent on the remote control to do that and communicate, back and forth confidently with the system and with the workers at the site that we are at half power or quarter power, so that these guys can work safely.
Can't hear you, Gary.
Gary, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I was muted. Probably the most common statement, probably the most often said thing in the year 2020. You're on mute.
I thought I left you wordless, Gary.
What's that?
I thought I left you wordless.
Well, you did, Steve. You did leave me wordless. Jay, let me ask you this question from the sales and manufacturing point of view, and I know you deal with folks all over the world yourself. Is this a difficult concept to sell to people? And is it something that most folks can afford? If you're a smaller operation, I know a large company or a company like TowerCast or Kiva, they can buy things in bulk, and that's what they're in the business of doing, is they maintain a lot of sites. But if I'm a small station with one or two transmitter sites, can I afford this, and how do I go about purchasing it? Are there a lot of decisions to be made on equipment and models, or is there just one rack mounted item that plugs into your transmission line or through line or whatever, and then another connection into the internet, and then it's easy? I mean, how does this work?
Well, it's a very simple install. Now, going back to your first question, can you afford it? If you have one or two stations, chances are you have a contract engineer, so you don't have a resource at the transmitter on a regular basis. So it's almost imperative that you get something in place like this. You've got monitoring equipment in place, remote monitoring equipment, but this actually allows you to do a remote diagnostic. You're going to get 20 plus or minus 20 centimeters of resolution, plus 8 inches of resolution on this. So it gives you a sense of direction as to how to resolve your issue, not just you've got an issue. How to resolve it where it is. So I would say it's imperative. As far as being an easy sale to a big broadcaster, it's not. But once you show them the value and what this does for you, what it can tell them about their own system, it really is an easier sell to anybody. That they see the value of analytics, they see the value of the data, and they see that, okay, you can help me monitor my system because we'll have access to that same system behind your firewall, and we'll be able to keep an eye on that system for you as well. So there's a strong value add for the big guy and in particular the little guy. You've got an engineering team behind you that knows what they're looking at. Here's my tower, I broadcast from that. So I think it's imperative that we get in front of the customers, show them what the value is, show them what this tool can do for them. And once that happens, it's not about the price, it's about the ease of installation, the technology, and what the benefit is to me.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's great. Pietro, you're also a manufacturer and you're an engineer, and you travel around the world and you have perspective. You meet with a lot of your clients, end users and radio station engineers. If you had to sum up the top maybe two things that you routinely get asked for, what would those be? when they ask you, to develop or design a product or solve a problem for them? What are those couple of top things you hear all the time?
First of all, as you say, I traveled from east to west, fortunately, not last year. But trust me, to introduce a very game changer technology has been very hard, because the radio frequency components on the outside part of the antenna are very new to be monitored. And the two questions were, the first of all, it's really available, this kind of technology? Do you have references? Fortunately, we started in the US, and we have our system installed on the One World Trade Center in the Sutro Tower in San Francisco. And who are the antenna partner? Because considering that DAC system and the Hawkeye system, it's really new, because nobody until now offered the possibility to monitor this kind of part of the transmission line. Maybe it's a very stupid and simple question, but they didn't know about the availability of the possibility to monitor the outdoor part with the full power of the antenna, the RF components. This is a very game changer technology. And the second one is the cost, because maybe considering that it's really new and solve a concrete need that they have, they ask the cost and the possibility to test it.
Yeah, I can imagine that it is hard to bring products to market that are different or unique, and it takes time to get adoption. But over time it does happen, and things like this session here, where we can give you and Jay and even Steve a chance to explain these technologies and how they're using them and why they're important, that helps. I know we're almost out of time, so I'm going to turn it back to Philippe and Marguerite, and I want to thank Steve and Jay and Pietro for being here and for participating and answering all of my great questions. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you all. And I just wanted to add, we have a great article on New York Public Radio and some of the work they did during the summer for the theater, covering Shakespeare in the Park. And so don't miss out the first issue of RedTech magazine. And also, we're going to hear from DAC later on in the week. Thank you, Pietro. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Gary. And thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
me. Thank you very much. Have a nice end of morning, or because it's the morning, I guess, in the States, and we're ending, and the sun is getting down here in Brive-la-Gaillarde.
It's 10 a.m. It's 10 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast.
There's sun in Paris today.
That's the power of internet. Thank you very much for joining and for explaining us all that. Of course, you can find this video immediately on connectonair.com, available, and on the YouTube channels of RedTech. Thank you, and see you soon, hopefully live, where we can meet and have a cup of champagne.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Radio Week 5 days of awards.
5 days of awards.
Inspirations and solutions.